So I've always been involved in transforming industries. And I was lucky enough to get my pilot's license in 1985. I've got 10,000 hours. I've been able to use a business jet. So I know the advantages of it. And when I looked at this, I think this industry is something that there's been a lot of copycatting and just people doing different things, but there hasn't been anything really transformative. You still have to have millions to buy the jets or tens or hundreds of thousands in order to charter the jets. So we were looking at this saying, how can we put this model together that allows somebody to buy a seat and not the jet and travel and get that private jet experience, but that they don't have to spend, again, those big sums of capital to do like you see with the other providers that are out there. And that's what really led to the concept of SetJet. And we'd been talking about this for about 20 years and went back and worked with the FMDOT in Washington about 10 years ago and presented this business model to them, went through several years of back and forth to make sure that we were doing everything we needed to do to be able to operate this business model in the fashion that works for us today. And then we launched the model in 2019 with our first official flight. And now we've done over 6,000 flights and flown over 30,000 passengers. So it's fun to see that vision go from concept and so many years in the planning, and especially for me with the passion behind it, to now seeing it implemented and seeing it provided for so many people that are now getting to travel and spend $750 per seat per hour, basically, to fly on a private jet and get that experience that so many people want to have.
Operationally, is it Part 380? How do you fly from an operational standpoint?
So we work with an operator. We do not own the aircraft. Those are owned by individuals that enter into an agreement and give it to an operator, and then they fly under a Part 135. So we essentially have a membership. You have to be a member of SetJet, and then our members congregate. We get them on the flight, and then the operator executes the flights for us.
Okay. Are you taking any new investors or new airplanes?
Both. We are taking new investors and new aircraft. We operate right now exclusively Challenger 850s. Most of them are 15 seats. So that keeps us consistent on the platform and the experience. But one thing we did want to do is every interior is different, every paint job's different, because we didn't want to have that feeling of it's the same old thing. So each time it can be a different experience. And again, truly maintain that private jet experience. We are and have done several rounds of financing. We're actually looking at some different alternatives, even public markets. My background, I've run a couple of different public companies on NASDAQ in the past. And I think even though the markets are tough right now, it's a good time for us to be exploring those opportunities. So we are taking investors in the short term, but we're also looking at expansion with aircraft into other markets outside of the Southwest where we're operating today.
Now, you kind of explained how the company got started. Want to explain how it works, how the membership works, and what the different levels are?
Yeah, so right now, from a membership experience, we have two entry points. The first one is our standard membership. And when you come to the website, you click book a member, and then you will enter your information, and we do a background check, and we charge $100 for the background check. And then once you've been approved, it's a $100 a month fee to be a member of SetJet. There's no long-term contracts, it's month to month. So if it's not for you, you don't have any long-term commitment. But then once you're a member and you're paying $100 a month, then you have access to our proprietary booking engine on the back end that then you can access and book a flight. And again, you're buying a seat. And the best way to think about that is $750 per hour. So let's say you want to go from Scottsdale to San Diego, it's roughly an hour flight. So that seat will be $750. If you want to go from Scottsdale to Cabo, that's roughly 2 hours. So each seat each way would be roughly $1,500.
And then how's the scheduling and seat process? So from what I understand, you can correct me if I'm wrong, you've got a set of airplanes. If there is an airplane available for the date that I want, I can book that route, that flight, and then other people can then buy seats on that route. On the other side, there may be already flights that are booked that I can then come on and buy a seat. Is that correct?
Correct. So for our membership, there's really two experiences. Actually, let me back up too, that I didn't talk about our elite membership. It's just a higher level of membership that there's a number of different benefits that allow you to have guests travel with you because everybody does have to be a member. So that's considered our elite membership. Most people start with the standard membership here in the Southwest. And then the elite membership is for those higher, more frequent travelers with additional benefits, bringing pets or guests with them as well. From the booking perspective, there's two experiences for the members. There's what we call member one. So that's the planner. And for the record, that's not me. That you may look out 3 or 4 months and decide when you want to book your trip or your vacation. And so you'd be the one to what we call establish that flight. You would go through the process, pick the date, the time you want to fly, the points you want to fly to from a drop-down menu of airports, and that establishes the flight. And then for somebody like me that's a last minute traveler, I would go on there and look, let's say tomorrow, and book a flight, and then I could see that it's available, and then I will buy a seat on the same flight. So one advantage for the SetJet members is whether you're booking that seat 3 or 4 months in advance, or whether you're booking that seat 30 minutes in advance, everybody's paying the same $750 for that seat for the hour. So there's no penalty if you're a planner or if you're a last minute traveler. Everybody's going to get the same experience. Again, a benefit of being a member.
And theoretically, as the fleet grows, you've got more airplane availability and more ability to book additional seats and different additional routes, right?
Absolutely. As we grow and more membership, like the number one request from members is more availability. So as we get that membership and we have more people traveling, then that'll naturally allow more flight availability and expansion of the routes. And we are really trying to stay within that 1 to 2 hour flight segment, maybe extend it a little bit beyond that, but we're not looking at doing everything for everyone. We really want to stay focused on these shorter hops, which is rare for a large cabin aircraft to do these types of flights. And get that experience. Typically in charters, you might be in a King Air 300 or a smaller propeller plane or even a smaller business jet, that the large cabin jets typically aren't doing these shorter hops. They're doing the longer haul flights. And I think that's another benefit for our members, to really give that ultimate experience of that cabin. And I can tell you, one of the things that's really exciting is this has become a real community, think of the private Gulf membership, the community in the sky, that the networking that's going on board, the people that you're meeting, it's a relaxed environment, like-minded travelers, and that's become a real benefit for our members as well. That magic happening in the sky where you never know who you're going to meet. Plus, we're giving you time back. We're really making this the way it should be, right? Everybody should love to travel, and if you're flying commercial these days, it's a miserable experience. And we're trying to bring that enjoyment, that time savings, the just looking forward to traveling again is really what we're trying to offer to so many more people.
Tom, we assume that COVID was probably a big propellant for your business in general. I would assume that was everybody's nightmare of realizing how terrible commercial, which has been a struggle for a lot of people, has all of a sudden become even worse in a lot of ways. The one thing that's very interesting, catches my attention, is in this industry, we know airplanes are expensive to operate and it's challenging to schedule. You've got crew, you've got all of these things that nobody sees except the dollar signs on the front. So most people go around that by charging long-term membership fees or really restricting somebody into a program, or almost like trying to ensure that the money is protected. You guys are really leading with service in a lot of ways and saying, we're going to make this so good that you won't leave. How has that kind of, I assume early days that was probably a conflict because you had to get people to experience to get it in the door, but same time you're burning fuel and you're doing everything else. What was that early trajectory? Obviously it's working incredibly well today and you have an immense amount of people that are excited about the service, but describe kind of that early trajectory.
We knew when we started early on that we were going to have to spend the money to overcome that. Is this too good to be true? You hear that you're flying for, especially for people in the industry, that you can be on a Challenger 850 and fly from Scottsdale to San Diego for $750. It's that too good to be true experience, right? So we found in the beginning, a lot of people would try it and just because they didn't believe it was going to happen. And so we knew we were going to have to spend the money and do some of these flights and build that membership. So we looked at it as a marketing expense. But you hit on a key point there. I think in this industry, or a lot of, not just this industry in general, service is being neglected more and more. And I think that's such a key aspect to it, from the way our ground staff communicates with people, the way the cabin hostesses, just their whole interaction with the company. They can fly with anybody, but for us to be able to provide this service is really what's going to differentiate us. And we did purposely want to steer away from those long-term commitments. If somebody's not happy with them, I don't want to force them to stay here. And we took the risk that we were going to be able to execute on that plan and really provide that 5-star, 6-star service and give people the chance to fly in these large cabin aircraft at a reasonable price. And it's worked out really well for us so far. And we haven't gone without our stumbles here and there, and it's been a learning experience. But I can tell you, the members that fly with us, absolutely, they are so supportive, so understanding. They really want us to succeed because it's a fantastic way to travel. So that's something that we've really prided ourselves on.
Are some of the other people in the space, as far as the semi-private, not necessarily operators, but facilitators, we'll call it, Is that good for the industry? From your perspective, I know there's obviously a similarity in some routes and some other things. From our perspective, we understand that a lot of our competitors are also our biggest partners. And so there's that strange dichotomy there. Is it similar on your side?
Absolutely, because a rising tide raises all ships, right? So you look at what Elon Musk did with Tesla, totally changed the automobile industry, right? So you had a transformer come in and really challenged the complacency, let's call it, that had been there. And so I look at it the same way that, yeah, we're going to be competitive, but at the end of the day, the customer is going to make that ultimate decision. And if we provide that service and we treat them right and we give them what they're expecting, then they're going to continue to fly with us. But I think that's also challenging others to look at and raise that performance. But again, travel in the old days, everybody's heard that, right? It was great. Everybody looked forward to it. They dressed up. They were excited about it. Now it's a miserable experience. Nobody's looking forward to that again. So let's try and get back to that and really challenge everybody to give that ultimate service and make people really feel good and enjoy the experience and make that part of the relaxation and enjoyment rather than something that they're dreading to do. Absolutely, I think the competitiveness is there. It's keeping us on our toes to see what else is going on out there, to adjust to it. You mentioned that. We watched people that were taking those big upfront fees, and while that would have been it's certainly something I would love to have done, we decided purposely not to do that because we wanted to go a different direction and attract people by the service, and not because they were locked in because we had hundreds, thousands of their dollars, and yet still provide a service that they really enjoy and talk to their friends about. And word of mouth has been a big differentiator for us. Plus, it's not mutually exclusive. Like, we have people that fly with us, but the schedule may not work, and so they still fly their own airplanes. The last few flights I've done, people sitting across from me own their own aircraft, or they're flying these other, as you mentioned, the competitors, right? So it's at our price point, we're not getting somebody locked in where they can't do something else. And I think that's also gives more freedom to the customers to want to be loyal to us, but also realize there's alternatives if our current map or plan doesn't fit for their needs, and they aren't feeling guilty about that.
Now, you mentioned a background check at the beginning of it. Is there anything from a restricting standpoint of things that you don't want to see in that background check? Is it a felony? Is it something like that, that those things you say, all right, you know what, since it is a shared service and there have been some issues in the past with some other shared services, what are those things that you're hoping not to find?
Yeah, we're definitely looking. Safety is our top priority. We're with an Argus Platinum operator, and then we expect the same of our customers. So if we get those background checks done and we're seeing drunken disorderlies, we're seeing breaking or entering, you can see all kinds of stuff that shows up. We really are focused in on making sure we're keeping that element out of this. None of us want that, right? If any, again, coming back to the industry as a whole, if something bad happens to this industry, all of us take a black eye for it. So we are very selective in the members that we're working with, and we've had people that have still passed, and then if something does happen, we've kicked them out of the membership because none of us want to have that experience, especially in an enclosed environment there. And so we're very specific on what we're looking for, and there's a number of criteria, but those are just a couple of examples of things that we're deselecting from when they show up.
What about the dress code?
Great question. We want to have people dress and be comfortable, but at the same time, these are leather seats on the airplane. We want to not have body oils having to get into that. We really want to provide a safe, clean environment for everybody. So we do enforce a dress code, and we try to be reasonable that it's something that you're going to wear out, but reeking of marijuana, let's say, or things like that, we don't want that on the airplane because it's going to stay into that leather and it's going to ruin the experience, not just on that trip, but potentially for others. So we do enforce a dress code. We do try to work with the members and give them a heads up, and it's something that we do highlight and talk about. And it's certainly not always well received. It's something, you're traveling on a private jet that belongs to an owner, and we want to maintain that clean and safe environment for everybody else. So we do spend a lot of time talking about that with our members to make sure they're comfortable, yet it's safe and something that's going to keep it clean and sanitized.
Tom, with your background, you've obviously been around business, you've started, you've ran, you've done all of the different things in operation. And we all know private aviation is a unique breed of its own. Describe some of the main hurdles you've faced. What are some of the main ones? What would people be surprised to hear?
Obviously, I think one of the first ones is to convince somebody to buy a jet, and then they're going to lose control of it because I'm going to be using it all the time. That was a hurdle in the beginning that we had to convince them this was really a good idea. And obviously, we've been able to do that. I think some of the other hurdles is is the model itself. People that are familiar with the industry and know the costs and know the expense associated with it still have struggling wrapping their head around how we're operating the business and growth. I think also planning, which we did not do a good job in the beginning, for breakage. It's not if these are break, it's when. They're all mechanical, so sometime it's going to happen, and how are you going to deal with that? And if you're the person that's impacted by that, it's not a fun experience, but safety is paramount for us. How people respond to that and how we deal with it as a company, we try to make sure it's the way I would want to be treated in that scenario. And 99% of the time, people are understanding, and we really do our best to still get them with their transportation. But this is a mechanical object, and when those things happen, we just do the best that we can. And still, our members have been pretty workable with us, and we've worked with our schedule, our mechanics, and with the team to really focus on understanding and planning for that, so that we almost have a backup, if you will, that if it happens, we can still execute the trips for you and switch you around. So in the beginning, we didn't do that very well, and I think we've really switched that up now, and I think we're doing a lot better.
From an investor standpoint, and I'm assuming you get this question from any investor, is can I buy an airplane, a Challenger 850 specifically, and make money?
It's a great question. The answer is yes, they can make money. So when they come into this program, they do get use of it. They just have to coordinate with us. But not everybody's, you're not going to get filthy rich over that, but you're going to be able to make money with that investment. You still get this year, it's 80% bonus depreciation, which is a big benefit for a lot of our investors. So there are ways to do that. And when they come to under our program, our aircraft owners have been very happy so far with what they've been able to receive from the investment they made in that airplane.
What do you see as the future of shared or semi-private travel? I feel like this feels like a bigger revolution, or kind of an early stage. I know it probably doesn't feel that early for you and all the years that you've put into this, but for the momentum that you guys have had, where does it go from here? And when you look down the road, what do you see in 5 or 10 years from now?
I think, especially when you look at shared travel today, that there was no differentiator. It's black and white, right? You're either on an airliner with 150 people, which is shared travel, or you were on your own airplane by yourself. And now you can get on the private jet, and you can make it affordable for a entirely different group of people. But I think the number was roughly there's 7 million private jet seats in the US. And then you compare that to nearly 1 billion seats if you factor in commercial travel and first class travel. And if we can put this on that affordability level, you're going to open up a much larger market again for people to not only travel private, look forward to the experience, but it'll also relieve some of the pressure on the commercial side. And the commercial airlines, you look at what's going on right now with controllers and having to pull back on increased schedules. I think that's going to drive more and more people to look for other alternatives. It certainly happened during COVID. And it certainly is something that I think is going to continue to evolve, because people are looking for experience. A lot of our members, they're not looking for the discounts, and that's not what we're trying to serve. We're trying to provide a service that they really want to aspire to and enjoy and get accustomed to. And I think it's just going to continue to expand and drive this industry more and more. I agree with you. This is, no matter how long I've been at this, 10 plus years, we're still in the infancy stages of the real private shared travel on the private jets. And I think it's just going to continue to grow. I think it's going to start to go internationally. I think you're going to see some of these start to form on international routes as well, from the US to Europe, or we're starting to see some of that pop up. So I like to think I'm the innovator here, that we're really helping change this. And I'm certainly one of the part to it, but I think it's just going to continue to evolve and grow as that service, and we meet that demand and more people become aware of it. They're going to seek that out as an opportunity, because there is something else other than just having to go cram yourself into the jet with a couple of hundred people.
When you were modeling the business out and you were building your financial models based on operating costs, how did you pick the Challenger 850? And do you think you'll always stick with that Challenger 850, or do you think there's a potential other airplanes long term that might work as well?
Great question. And we looked at everything. We looked at from the Pilatus to BBJs. And I do think the 850 worked for us, because what we were looking for was a plane that was built for these shorter hops. And the CRJ 200, which is the airline version of this, that's really what it was designed for, right? When you look at SkyWest or Air Wisconsin or ComAir, all of those were using these airplanes for exactly what we're doing. We just take it, instead of 50 people in that interior, we're putting 15 in there. So I do also believe it is going to expand to other aircraft. I do think it'll still tend to stay on the larger aircraft side because I think people are more comfortable. It's a more spacious environment. It's a more enjoyable environment. So I do think it's going to drive that to bigger aircraft. And we're seeing some of those, right? We're seeing other operators try some of these in 737s on longer routes and things. And I think that's going to continue. And it's something that we're looking at. That I'm excited to see that happening, and I think it's going to be really good for the industry. But I'm really happy with our platform. We're going to stay with this as much as we can in the routes that we're doing in these timeframes. But if you all to start looking at, let's say, an LA to New York, it's going to need a bigger platform and a different type of aircraft. And then if you start looking at international, that you're going from New York to London or New York to Paris, that again is going to be a different platform to meet the safety requirements and give that experience. So I think there's a lot of growth still to come. I think, again, we're just scratching the surface and getting it started. But now that we're attracting attention to it and showing that this can be done, I think you're going to see more and more start to look at this and figure it out. And we want to do our best to maintain a leadership position in that and grow with it as well.
What surprised you from all of the data? Like you said, rattle off the statistics you had for how many flights and how many passengers you've moved at this point.
So to date, from our first flight in December of 2019, we've now done over 6,000 flights and we've flown over 30,000 passengers. And I think the thing that surprised me the most was the networking that's going on board. Every one of us who flies commercial, I can't think of the last time I was on a commercial flight that I turned to somebody sitting shoulder to shoulder with me and had this great conversation, or I try to just put your AirPods in and you just focus on the seat in front of you, watch your phone or whatever it is. But on our flight, that's something that was really underestimated is the networking, the conversation that goes on. It's a relaxed environment and we hear it continuously from our members. That's the magic, that community in the sky that's going on up there, that people are meeting, they're becoming friends, they're going out to dinners, they're going to similar places. And that's something that really did surprise me. That's really exciting to see because our members absolutely love that aspect of the travel with us.
And what about the routes? Obviously, we've seen an organic expansion of this, but I'm sure that you probably had some guess of or estimation of different routes and seasonality and days of travel and everything else. Are you seeing any routine or kind of habitual approaches that you didn't expect or have surprised you in how some of these assets have actually moved?
Yes, obviously based in Scottsdale, Arizona, we knew where people were traveling, right? They're going to second homes in California, they're going to Vegas, they're going to the mountains for skiing, they're going to Mexico. So we put those routes in there intentionally. And I think the thing that's been really cool to watch is because our service is something that people want to do, we're watching them actually alter their schedules so that they can fly with us. Because obviously we can't do every flight every day right out of the gate. We have to build the membership and we have to build that access to the flights, and watching the members work with us to say, hey, we really love this, we want to support this, and adjust their schedules so that they can fly with us rather than maybe it's having to stay an extra day or go in the morning instead of at night. And hearing that feedback, that's been really a fun experience to hear back from the members, and really shows that as we continue to grow this, then they're telling their friends and their friends are starting to travel, and then showing families. We may see a business traveler on a regular basis. Just had this happen, as a matter of fact, that a gentleman that travels with us to Southern California all the time and then came and approached us, and for his daughter's 21st birthday, flew with us up to Vegas for the weekend. That service and experience is really creating that loyalty and that desire for people to continue to support the company and travel. And the more they do that, then the more we can grow and provide more routes and opportunities for them to travel with SetJet.
How difficult was it? I guess, could you compare the difficulty between traveling on your local domestic routes versus going into Mexico, and that process of what it's like and how different it is from domestically to internationally?
Yeah, believe it or not, and I thought it was going to be a big challenge for us, but we got really lucky because here in Scottsdale, we have US Customs. So when we leave here, when we land in Cabo, we also are landing at the airport that's right near the downtown area, not an hour out of town. So Customs has really been friendly working with us down in Mexico, and the same here when they come back to Scottsdale. We clear right here on the ramp, so we don't have to go anywhere else. So it actually, on the Customs and the international side, came to us a lot easier than I thought it was going to. And it's actually encouraged us now to look to the north, also to go to Canada. We're getting a lot of requests from going to Canada. And at first we were pretty leery to it, but after Mexico went as well as it did, for the last couple of years. We're really excited now to go to other international destinations.
Tom, do you have an app? How is everybody engaging technologically with the company and customers, booking platform, everything else? I believe you're all proprietary at this point. I would assume that requires a really big role in how all of this can move smoothly.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it is, all the software was developed in-house and it's proprietary because of the restrictions that we had as booking the flights, not publishing a schedule, and getting our members to be able to easily find and still buy that seat on the plane. So it's all done right now through a website that's also mobile friendly. We will be developing an app, but everything comes through setjet.com, or you can call our member services team. That was, again, another key point for us, was the service side of this. So we made the website as friendly as possible, but not everybody's tech savvy. So they can also call into our member services team, and we're here 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week. And they can talk to a human and go through the process and answer their questions. And that's been extremely exciting, as well as a lot of our member services team, they get to know the members by name. They actually get to meet them. They get requested. And then same thing with our cabin hostesses. So the service side of it is extremely important for us. And as we continue to grow, that's really one of the big parts of the culture we want to maintain in the company. And it's, to me, it's such a differentiator for what SetJet provides, especially when they're going down to Cabo. We've got the customs integration. The customs officers know us down there and here because we're going on a frequent basis. If there is somebody that, we just had this the other day, had the passport that had expired, they deal with it, and we were able to bring them back. And had we not been going through that, it would have been a really scary situation for that person. But having the relationships and been performing these routes as long as we have, it went very smoothly.
Now, when you're looking at flights and operating, theoretically, the way I look at it, when you're operating in a smaller window of 1 to 1.5 hour locations, which works really well for Scottsdale, you get a lot of great locations within that 1 to 1.5 hour. How much more stress does it put on your scheduling and trying to stay efficient when you start moving outside of that 1.5 hour and you move into the 2 to 3 hours? And like you said, Mexico and Canada, how much extra stress does that put on your schedule and trying to be efficient with these airplanes? Because the goal has really always been to limit those positioning legs. And I'm assuming you've been it's probably easier when you've got a smaller location. How much more stress does that put on that scheduling efficiencies as you move out farther and farther away?
And that's certainly something we took into account. So when we're looking at the block scheduling on this, we've been planning for that already. So when we look at the different blocks of the day, okay, the 1 hour block each way takes up this section, but if now you're doing 3 hours, okay, it's going to take up 3 of the sections. So I think it's going to fit very well with what we're doing. And it just reduces then that cycle count on the plane if we have those longer flights. And then with the buy the seat, not the jet model, keeping that 750 per hour per seat, people can very quickly say, oh, okay, I'm going from, instead of 1 hour to San Diego, it's 2 hours to Cabo. They know it's going to be $1,500. If, to use Vancouver as an example, if that's 3 hours, it's going to be $2,250. So it plays in not only on the scheduling side, but for our members to understand it as well, that you look at a lot of commercial routes today and there's no rhyme or reason to the pricing you see there. So I think the consistency, the way we built the blocks, the way we're doing the scheduling, and the way we built the software on the proprietary side works really well for us to be able to have looked ahead and said, this is at some point we're going to be doing, let's say, an LA to New York route. How's that going to fit within the block schedule? So that was something that's going to change. We don't have that dynamic pricing facet that really confuses members. So it's straightforward. Everybody's seeing the same thing. They understand it. And I think that's, I think simplicity is always a good thing, especially when you're looking at dealing with travel and aircraft.
Speaking on pricing, Dan and I have managed assets. We've seen different budgets. We've gone through the whole process of this. And I think outside of the industry, people see private planes, they see the cost, and they think, wow, how expensive. There's a large dollar amount that goes into every hour and every minute of flight. And they don't realize that the smallest variable can make a large difference on the actual cost. Based on the timeline of operation for you guys, obviously you've gotten to see that variability in a massive way, I'm sure. What's been the biggest price increase that you've had to battle operationally, and how has that kind of been brought into thinking about membership costs?
Number hands down, and it was all of us are in the same boat, fuel. Fuel went berserk this past year. And then that obviously led to maintenance, right? Because supply chain issues. So those two issues definitely factored in. And what we had to do was adjust our pricing. We had to adjust that per seat pricing. We had to make 3 different price adjustments last year because of those cost increases. When you're looking at the direct operating cost of that aircraft on an hourly basis and you have the metrics that you want to meet, when those variables change, you have to, and to be honest, we were a little behind the 8 ball there, but we had to make the changes, which is why it led to 3 of them, because fuel then affected transportation for the parts, which affected maintenance, which affected landing fees. So we've got a good program, I think, in place now to be able to respond to that. But without a doubt, that was something that it caught us a little bit off guard, but once we reacted to it, the members understood then, and when you explain to them what's going on and you break it out, it went better than I had expected when you're having to increase pricing.
Tom, you guys are using an Argus Platinum operator. Was there ever a time where you said, we're gonna buy a certificate and we're gonna operate it? And what was that decision like?
It's a great question too, because it was something we certainly took a look at because we wanted to really make sure we're controlling the experience. But in doing so, we also wanted to maintain that we were asset light, where we could take our investor dollars and spend them on that experience and the performance for the membership, where it was more like Airbnb and Uber, right? They use a technology platform that gets you rides in cars that they don't own or staying in homes that they don't own. So it was that kind of a philosophy that really reinforced for us. We don't have to be the operator. We have to work with a great operator. We do. They're a great partner for us. But the experience of the onboard and for our members was more important to me than being the operator of the aircraft. So by getting great owners with a great operator allows us to focus on where we felt we were going to differentiate ourselves in the market space. I think that was a really big decision for us.
You've got a FBO and an office in Scottsdale, which I can assume you can really be very hands-on with clients. What's it like when you're operating outside of that area and other airports that you don't have boots on the ground like you do in Scottsdale?
One of the neat things is because, again, we have established those relationships, the ground crews in the other locations really help and work with us at those FBOs where we only are popping in, we're on the ground for 45 minutes and leaving. So they've been extremely, again, they're critical to our operation. We let them know that, so they work really well with us to support us there. The cabin hostess is really central to that, right? When they greet you here, they do the flight, then when they land and get the passengers to their destination, then they're greeting the next set of passengers that are going to board and come onto that flight coming back. And so they are really the coordinators for us, along with the FBOs. And the FBO, Atlantic, Signature, whatever you're using, they really are designed on that service side. So we just integrate really well with them and try and let them know what we're doing in the operation. So right now we have 2 hubs. It's Scottsdale and Las Vegas. And then our out hubs, I mentioned Cabo and these other locations. Then we've worked with the FBOs to just, hey, when we're here, we're going to need help with the luggage or whatever the case may be. And then it gets coordinated with our cabin hostess to make sure we're still providing the best experience that we want for our members. And they've been really supportive with us in that aspect.
Where are you taking members in what cities? And for clients that want to find out more information about SetJet, how can they get that information?
So you can learn everything about SetJet at our website, which is setjet.com. That'll give you a great overview. I'm actually getting ready to put a new one up here shortly that's going to really exciting to launch it because it's been a while since we've overhauled it. And then on the website, there's a chat box that people can communicate with our member services team. There's also a phone number to pick up the phone. If somebody doesn't want to or doesn't understand something, pick up the phone, we'll answer it and get you the answers through our member services group. But setjet.com is the website. It should hopefully answer everything you have there. And then we're going to be expanding some of our education we do a lot through social media explanations, showing the experiences, creating some YouTube videos. We're going to be doing a lot more webcasts, and then really enhancing where we fly and enhancing these areas from Salt Lake City to Las Vegas to the Los Angeles area, Orange County, San Diego, Cabo, out of Scottsdale. It's pretty simple once they get on there and see it, but it may take them to understand it. And that's why we're giving them technology to do it through the website and human interaction by talking to our member services team.